If only life were a straight path to our desired destination, wouldn't life be so much easier? Yeah, maybe. But those unexpected zigzags in our path teach us that life's tough struggles have greater purpose than we ever imagined. Stories and strategies are our focus for Season 4. Zigzag and One host, Melanie Brown, chats with courageous women who share their stories of encountering zigzags and how they fought to overcome them. Be assured their stories will inspire and encourage you. But we know warm and fuzzy feelings aren't enough to equip you to fight those challenging zigzags in your path. So, this season, our guests are joining us for another episode to share strategies, mindsets, and habits that strengthened and empowered them during their toughest seasons. Join us in declaring, zigzags may interrupt our path, but they will not detour us. We will keep moving forward.
Welcome to the Zigzag and One podcast. My guest, Sharon Richardson, is a speaker and the author of the book, How Deep Is Your Love? A Mom's Shattered Dreams Are Transformed into Showers of Blessings. Her memoir is about her now 31-year-old daughter, Paige. It was early in Paige's journey with multiple medical struggles that Sharon declared, Paige is a gift. You'll hear Sharon explaining how believing the sooner you see the blessing, the sooner you receive it, changed her perspective and allowed her to embrace the blessings that Paige's life would bring. Sharon and her husband Tommy have been married for 11 years. Unfortunately, we didn't have time to discuss their relationship, but it too is a beautiful God story. I love how Paige is a fighter, an overcomer. But she is because her mom Sharon is also a fighter and an overcomer. Together, they have encountered many zigzags, and they choose to keep moving forward. It's such a beautiful story of God's love. Please join me for my conversation with Sharon Richardson. I am super excited today to have my friend Sharon Richardson with us. Met her at the Christian Communicators Conference about 2 years ago and heard her talk about her life and her daughter that has special needs. It was very obvious when she spoke of the struggles, the zigzags that she has been through, and about her precious daughter, Paige, that her heart wasn't about focusing on the struggles, because having a child with special needs is a lifetime of care and concern and advocating for your child. But there wasn't any negativity or resentment or anger about that. Instead, Sharon had so much love and joy and excitement about her daughter, Paige. And so I knew that we were going to have to get her on the show, and we have today. So I'm super excited. Welcome, Sharon.
Oh my goodness. Hi, Melanie. Thank you so much for having me today.
Oh, you're so welcome. I am glad that we finally made this happen.
Yes. It's been a long time, but today must have been the day that God planned for this to be. It was set aside for today.
I think so. And so I want to get started because we have a lot to talk about. You have faced quite a few zigs and zags throughout your life. And we're going to start with the fact that you were adopted when you were 1 day old.
Yes.
What I loved about reading your story in your book, How Deep Is Your Love? You talked about that your parents, your adoptive parents, wanted to make sure that you knew you were chosen.
Right.
I absolutely love that. As we continue and talk about your daughter, Paige, I believe you were chosen to be Paige's mom as well.
Yes.
I think that that is a beautiful thread that has carried through your life. One of the things that I want us to get to immediately is the fact that you were 30 years old, you were pregnant, and your sweet baby arrived prematurely. She was 3 pounds and 2 ounces at just the 31-week mark. So she was tiny, but being premature also has the risk of having lots of health issues. And unfortunately, Paige had quite a few health issues. Share with us about those.
Well, when Paige was born, I didn't expect anything to be wrong with her. I knew she was coming early, but I didn't think anything about it. And, when I heard her cry, I knew she was tiny. I've heard of babies being premature before, but they usually get bigger and get better and go home. So I heard a strong cry and thought, everything's fine. But within moments, she was whisked away from me and taken into another room. And I still wasn't concerned at that time. But as time passed, the doctors came in and started telling me that this was not right and this was wrong. And I was still okay. But she went on directly to the NICU unit, the NICU, and I was still just thinking she's going to be fine. But as days passed, they continued to tell us basically that, every major organ in her body was compromised. And it didn't happen, all at one time. It was over a period of days. But each day, I was hit with another. They found this wrong, and then they found this wrong, and then this is not right. And then over a period of, maybe a week or so, they came back and just basically said that they didn't recommend any medical intervention because the magnitude of her issues were so great. They didn't think that she was going to have a very good quality of life. And they did not expect her to leave the hospital.
And when I read all of that, as a mom myself, my heart just ached for you. This is your first baby, and you are just being hit with one complication after another. And you wrote in your book that they gave her a 35% chance of survival. That is heartbreaking. The odds are definitely stacked against her at that point. But I love the fact that you gravitated not toward worst case scenario. Instead, you said, I believe that she is a gift. And you declared James 1:17 that says, every good and perfect gift is from above. And so not only was Paige chosen for you, but with all of her complications, you said and you chose to look at her as a gift. That is remarkable. I can only imagine the fear of the unknown and fear of what lies ahead for Paige. And you're thinking that as her mom. How did you get to the point where you didn't dwell on all of the negativity that was coming at you, and instead you looked to a verse like James and declared, you doctors are saying all these things and not giving her a very good chance, but I'm declaring that she's a gift. How do you get to that point?
I grew up in a Christian home and I believed in God, but it wasn't really until Paige was born that I needed to draw on those things that were inside of me. And at that point, I really didn't know what was inside of me. It was difficult. I know I gave kind of a just overall quick glimpse of what was going on, but it was really so much greater than that. As news hit me and the room was spinning, it was just, as my emotions were going all over the place. And I remember, I put this in the book, but I do remember a day that I walked into her room and I saw her eyes and she was looking at me. And there was something about that connection that really changed something for me, excuse me, in my heart, because for the first time, I put myself aside and looked at this person in front of me, and I saw a person that needed me. I just felt like, oh my goodness, they're born, they're here, they're in a world, they've never been born, they've never lived in this world, they don't know what they've gotten themselves into. Yeah, and she's the one that needs somebody to be there for her. So there was something in that moment, but I also went away to my parents because I needed some time to just process everything. And I was out jogging on a trail one day, and I really had never, in what I had remembered, hearing what I call the voice of God. But I did hear something inside of me about a perfect gift. And so I sat down and I just started pondering. And I did not, at that time, I did not know there was a scripture in the Bible that talked about every good and perfect gift comes from above. I did not know that was there, but I kept hearing about a perfect gift. And so I started wondering and pondering, what does this mean? Is this for me? Through my pondering, I just started realizing this is for me. This is something that God's trying to say to me about Paige. If God gave her to me and every good gift comes from God, then she must be good. That really changed for me, that I have been given a gift. I had been chosen out of many. If she was going to be born, why not me? Instead of, why me? Why not me?
I love that perspective. There are so many times that things happen in our lives, and we do lean towards, why me? Why am I going through this? Why not me? God chose you to go through this. So if that is true, which I do believe that it's true, he is going to equip you, and he is going to give you the skills and the connections in order for you to be able to be the best parent that you can be for Paige. I've seen that happen in your life, in the fact that you have this joy about being her parent and making sure to advocate for her, to make sure she has great adventures and she's exposed to all the things that people without disabilities are exposed to. Obviously, he has equipped you and strengthened you and empowered you to be Paige's mom. He knew that you were the right person for the job, so to speak.
Right.
I think that is beautiful. As a special ed teacher myself, I have just a huge heart and fondness for anyone who has any kind of disabilities. And so that was partly why I was so interested in your story. How did you keep yourself as her parent educated and passionate about advocating for her and making sure she had those experiences? Because that can get very wearisome after a while.
That's kind of an interesting question, because I don't know how I got there. My heart opened up so big towards Paige and towards this person that needed me. And it's like, I got out of the way. I'm like, it's a joy for me to go in and do something to help make her life better. If I can do it, I'm going to do it in every possible way, whether it's traveling, whether it's school, whether it's with her friends, whether it's with clothes. I mean, just if I can make something better for her, it just brings me joy. I can't explain it any other way than that. It does bring me joy when I see that I'm able to do something to make her happy, to make her life better, to advocate for her, to be her voice. Complete joy.
I see it on your face, and I'm sorry the listeners can't see it on your face, but I also hear it in your voice. And I know it to be true because since meeting you at the Christian Communicators Conference, I've followed you on Facebook and social media, and you're always posting pictures, and she is so much a part of everything that you and your husband do. It's not forced in any way. She's just a natural part of the family. And I am just grateful that you see it that way, because you have enriched her life in many, many ways, as much as she has enriched your life.
Yeah. It's kind of interesting because Paige, just listening to what you're saying there, I don't even see a disability anymore. I just don't see it. And I've told people before, I remember these words coming out of my mouth years ago, I don't feel sorry for Paige. They're like, what is that? Well, you don't feel sorry? I said, no, I don't feel sorry for her. Why would I feel sorry for her? Because if I feel sorry for her, then that means that there's something not right about her. I mean,
Yes.
who she is. So, yeah, I don't even see a disability anymore. I mean, it's there kind of, but that's just not my focus.
Well, it reminds me of a passage that I made note to bring up, and it happened, the passage is much later in the book, but what you're saying relates to this directly. And so you wrote, I've never tried to fix Paige. The way I see it, fixing is not developing. Fixing comes from a place of frustration inside oneself, causing you to look at the person and seeing something broken. For me, developing is looking at the person and seeing the beauty inside of them. It's in this acceptance that the beauty comes forth. Sharon, those are big words. When something isn't working the way it should, so to speak, even with some sort of kitchen appliance or your car or anything like that, you're trying to fix the brokenness. And unfortunately, as this points out, some people think that a disability needs to be fixed.
Right.
As a special educator, again, that's definitely in line with my philosophies, because when I work with students that have academic needs, then I'm not trying to fix the problem, because I can't fix a learning disability. I can't fix ADHD. As you pointed out, we are helping develop them, to give them skills, to give them opportunities. I loved that passage. Tell me more about that line of thinking.
Over the years, I have seen other parents interact with their children, and I've seen frustration, and I've actually felt sorry for the child.
Yes, I understand that, actually. I do.
I'm like, oh my goodness, but it's really coming from a place inside of them that is broken. In their brokenness, it's coming out as frustration towards that child. If that may help explain it a little bit, but that's what I have seen. And I've just felt sorry for the child, but I also know that the parent is frustrated. And I just wish that there would be more understanding and peace, between the two of them.
I have seen what you're talking about several times. I won't say numerous, but I have several times, and it is heartbreaking. The focus is on, I guess, the negative side of life rather than the positive. I've had quite a few health issues over the course of my life, and my parents, and I give them all the credit, from when I had my stroke at age 2, I had some deficits then for sure. They wouldn't allow those to be roadblocks for me. They wouldn't allow them to keep me from participating in normal, if there is such a word, activities. They wanted me to be able to try the things my other peers that hadn't had a stroke were able to do. And that philosophy has carried through with me as well. We're going to continue to face struggles. We have to focus on the positives and not get hung up on those negatives. And I love how you have done that in every step of Paige's life, because in the book, you go through all the different stages and you share some struggles that she had and the ways that you tried to make sure that that wasn't the focus, but that here's an opportunity for you to be with friends, and here's an opportunity to go on this vacation and this ministry opportunity. I applaud you for that, because it takes a lot of energy and effort. That part of your story really touched me, especially with my background in special education.
Yeah.
So we're going to backtrack just a bit, because we kind of skipped around. You picked up a point and I had to go to a quote at the end of the book, but I want to go back to one of the quotes that you had at the beginning of the book. And it was, while you were in the hospital, they were giving you all of this news that, as a young parent, I can only imagine was just weight and more weight and more weight on you. I can't recall if it was a friend or an acquaintance, but somebody sent you a poem that was titled Welcome to Holland. And it was written by Emily Pearl Kingsley. You share the poem in the book, and I don't want to give all the details away because in our interview that we're going to do after this one, that's called Mindset, you talk about how this poem shaped your mindset. So I'm going to tell just the briefest part of it. And then I want you to talk about how this poem impacted you to the point where it became not just a poem that you read, but it really shaped your mindset going forward about being a parent of a child who had disabilities. So to sum up the poem, Welcome to Holland, it's about a person that wanted to take a trip to Italy, got on the plane, was about to disembark, and learned that they did not land in Italy, but they landed in Holland. The person was extremely upset about the fact that they had planned and learned all these things and got guidebooks about where to stop. And so now they're having to completely change the course of where they're going. The whole time they're talking about how they are missing out on the things in Italy, and there's a possibility that they're missing what could be in Holland, which could be just as beautiful or even more beautiful, because their mindset is about what they thought they were going to get, but then they didn't get to get. I'm going to stop there, and then I would like for you to talk about how that poem impacted you.
Yeah, I don't remember how that poem came to me. You know, everybody, I had so many people, family and friends, trying to help and try to make sense of what was going on. And I do remember reading that poem, and it was really the first time that I realized that it has to do with perspective. The poem actually gave me an opportunity to think that there may be another perspective here of this situation, because that's what I was seeing in the poem. I found myself saying a lot later, and I feel like it came back to that poem, is the sooner you see the blessing, the sooner you receive it. So my perspective changed when I read that poem, thinking, you know, this may not be so bad after all. Let me see what's good about it, because I don't see anything bad about it at all. I don't see anything bad about my life. I don't see anything bad about any of it. I would go back and do it all again. And so it's really hard for me to even think that I never made it to my other destination, because this was my destination all along.
Right.
But yet that helped me transition from thinking that I had missed it somehow. And maybe it looks different than somebody else's life, but that's okay, because it doesn't mean my life has to look any less or have any less fulfillment in it, because it doesn't. In fact, I feel like I sometimes I feel like I'm more blessed and I'm more fulfilled by all of the things that I've lived through with Paige that other people don't get to experience. And I mean, I've even had somebody come up and they said, I have a family member that has a child with special needs, and I don't have that child, but sometimes I kind of wish I did, because I see all of the blessings that go on in their lives. And when they told me that, I said, I completely get it, because I feel like we have just been showered with blessings upon blessings upon blessings because of our situation. And so I don't know that really ties completely to the poem.
I think it does, definitely. Absolutely.
Yeah, just, we didn't miss out, even though the poem was pivotal in me thinking that I could go that way. And that's the way the world would go naturally, just going, this isn't how it was supposed to be.
What I took away from that poem, because I had never come across it before, we get our hearts and our minds so fixated on certain things that we think we need or must have, or if we don't have, we're going to miss out and just not have the most wonderful life ever. If we get so focused on what we don't get, then we are missing out. And we are going to talk about it in your other interview, so I don't want to go too deep into this. but the idea of the sooner you see it as a blessing, the sooner you're going to receive all the wonderful things that come along with that. I think it's difficult for some people to get to that point, that they can't break away from what they don't have. And so I'm excited about hearing more about that when we have your other interview. Let's get back to your story. With Paige, she went through elementary, middle, and high school, had some access to special education services, and she graduated, walked across that stage. There was a mama moment there in the book that was precious. And then she also that same year was baptized.
Yes.
So talk about her experiences with meeting God and knowing God, and how she got to the point where she felt convicted enough that she wanted to give her life to Jesus and to be baptized.
It's really interesting because Paige has always enjoyed worship. So the music that she listens, or I guess let's say she's always enjoyed music. And so the music that really we gave her to listen to was worship music. She didn't listen to secular music. It was always worship. So I guess, I feel like through that, I didn't think about it at the time, but obviously that was ministering to her spirit.
Yes, it does mine.
Yes. And so that's just what she's been exposed to her entire life. And then in church, she would love the praise and worship music, and she just comes alive. Her whole being, her whole body. I mean, she is just so full of joy being in the presence of God in this worship. She sees things, she watches things, she watches people. And so she would see the baptisms at church. And she just one day she said, I want to do that. I want to do that. And I'm like, are you sure? And she's like, yes. And I wasn't sure if she really knew what this was about, if it had to do with Jesus, or if she was just wanting to do that. So we had a little conversation with each other. And, I went ahead and checked with the church. They had never baptized a special needs child before. And they went ahead, and it was we go to a big church, but they agreed. They had seen her, they knew her, they knew who she was. And they're like, well, we're going to make it happen. She did it. And I believe it was her decision. So.
Right. You shared in the book also about mission trips that she has gone on with you. I went back and looked at some of the pictures on your Facebook of her in that environment. And I agree with you. I think she knew exactly what she was doing based on those pictures. There is joy. You can tell that she understands what prayer is. She is sharing something that comes from her heart. And I just think it is so beautiful to see that. Some of the pictures I realized were with other individuals that had disabilities. No matter how much you and I or anyone else that doesn't have disabilities would speak to those people that do, we are not going to connect with them like Paige will, because they look at her and they say, she's like me.
Right.
And if she believes this, then I at least want to hear what she has to say and possibly consider having that same relationship with Jesus. She is a light. She is, as you said, a gift. So what is she doing now?
My husband and I served in the healing ministry at our church, and she's always been a part of what we're doing. We felt like she's supposed to be a part of that with us. That was, I guess, advocating, but it was really feeling like she's supposed to be a part. So she would come in, and they hadn't had anybody probably like her there before, but she's there praying with us. And it got to be where when she prayed, people would come back and say later that when she prayed, they were healed. Something was happening through her, this impartation to others. And so I just sit back and watch going, I can't believe what you're doing through her, God. This is amazing. This is just, but that's just another, we've given her opportunities.
Yes.
Yes.
I think just like the Holy Spirit speaks through us and convicts us, I can envision that that's happening with her as well. I don't know why it wouldn't happen to her as well. And he's probably very much more audible with her. And she's hearing that and she's flipping in the books, and whereby she may not be able to read those words. I imagine that he's speaking them to her.
And I'm like, okay, God opened a door for her to go to a mission trip in Guadalajara. But the second time we came back, they remembered her. And I was talking with somebody and they said, oh, I said, that's my daughter over there. And she said, oh, I've heard about your daughter. And I'm like, you have? And she's like, I've heard about her. She's the one that brings people hope.
Oh, as a mother, oh my goodness, hearing that.
Yes.
If we could only have that said about us, Sharon.
I know, and
how beautiful.
Yeah, she'll be 31 this month. She'll be 31 years and, never expected to leave the hospital. The doctor said she would not have a good quality of life, the way the world thinks, but oh my goodness, as far as God's kingdom purposes, she's mighty in the kingdom. She is
Amen.
mighty in the kingdom, yes.
One of the other quotes that I wanted to make sure, especially since it uses the word overcomer, and that's one of my most favorite words, I want to read this quote. It talks about Paige, but it also talks about you, and it's just beautiful. So I'm just going to read this, and then we're going to get close to closing out. You wrote in your book, Paige has taught me to be an overcomer because she is one. She's so brave, so strong, so diligent. She's a champion. She's the one who has endured so many surgeries. She's the one who lives with a disability. She didn't choose this life, but she has chosen to live. She's chosen resilience and motivation. But most of all, her heart bubbles up with joy. She's a warrior. What a beautiful thing to say about your daughter. But you are an overcomer, as you said. You have gone through the struggles with her, and you've advocated for her, and you've been her voice. You never gave up. You fought to overcome. You can be given something that feels very large, and yet you say, she's a gift. God chose me to be her mom. I'm in it for the long haul. I'm here, and I'm going to fight for my baby, and I'm going to make sure she has every opportunity and experience. Thank you for being on the show, Sharon.
Oh, thank you for having me. I really enjoyed it. Thank you so much.
Can you send us off today?
Oh, I'd love to. When life zigzags, keep moving forward.
Yes, ma'am. Keep moving forward.